Okay, it started.
All right, here we are, March
All right.
24th, 2022. We're going to change the world today.
And I just sent you gentlemen the link, and this right here is an interview. This is actually Jack Maxey on Hunter Biden's laptop. He's speaking before a group. I'm not sure who these people are, but very nicely dressed, seems professional. But as far as what Jack is doing, he's going through and he is cataloging all of the Hunter Biden laptop items, the emails, the texts. They've recovered photographs. One thing I found though, he has another interview that he did with probably another podcaster or a YouTuber or something. And this one, he's very professional. And you can watch the video, but I believe he leads us to believe that he is that there is nothing on that Hunter Biden laptop. You know how everybody is like, oh, Pedalwood, Pedalgate, blah, blah, blah. That there's nothing on that laptop that indicates there's any, of that going on that laptop. The laptop from hell is really just based upon corruption, mostly with the Ukraine, some with China, and that there's actually, once again, you're led to believe that, there's a lot of treasonous information on here. He even goes into Peter Strzok and this Freeman, who used to head the FBI, being old friends, inseparable, and how he kind of talks about how the communications that he has seen tells a story, and he kind of tells that story in this interview. In the second interview with the YouTuber, I'm going to admit he seems a bit like a douchebag. He's all about, I say, people like me, I'm saving the world, but it's not just me, there's other people too. And in that interview, he makes it sound like there is underaged pornography, maybe not necessarily certain acts or anything, but he definitely said that there were pictures of, I think it was a young family member at either 12 or 14 years old. And they had recovered a lot of pictures from those. So you watch this, if you watch him on stage talking to people, he tones it down, makes it sound like it's more government treason. On this other one, he still does that, but he also kind of puts forward, oh yeah, well, we do have all these pictures, and if we find any more that get any worse, we're probably gonna have to turn them into the police. So
Does he say where he got the information on the laptop?
yeah, I'll tell you what, if you watch that the link I just sent, he explains everything. He explains how the laptop came to the gentleman who initially got the laptop, how other people got the laptop, how the laptop was leaked to another group, how about Rudy Giuliani and his experience with the laptop. Another thing that's interesting is in his second interview, and this, once again, this is where, it kind of, do I trust him? I don't know. If he produces, it's not for me to, I'm just telling you what he's doing here. But if he, where was I going with that? If he's able to produce this stuff like he's saying he will, and he's supposed to be doing it by tomorrow, he did kind of take that back a little bit in the second interview with the YouTuber, to where he was saying, I just found 100,000 more emails today, and another 100,000 texts. It sounds like those excuses we've heard before, to where it's like, oh, all this information is going to be dumped. We've been hearing this for years. Information's dumped Friday. Oh yeah, fraud information is going to be dumped this in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and it just keeps being pushed out now. So we'll know more tomorrow. If he's full of it, he's already given himself a little bit of an out, saying, yeah, we found more, we need to catalog more. But and one thing he was also saying was, he was talking about Grassley and a lot of people who I would have thought were supporting him. He was kind of bad mouthing them, saying that there's not a single person you can trust in Congress. And he mentions, no, you can't trust Grassley, you can't trust any, anybody on any of the committees because they've done absolutely nothing. And he's right, they haven't done anything. Is there a reason they haven't done anything? I don't know. But so that's kind of where that goes, between that and, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this sounds like a little bit of the WikiLeaks and Julian Assange part 2 almost, but with different information. Is this guy holed up in Switzerland somewhere? Yeah. Or do you know where he is?
He is I believe he is in Switzerland. And I'll tell you what, you watch a second interview and he'll tell you, I'm in Switzerland, they've been good to me. I'm such a hero. He's very annoying to listen to, but he's got the goods. He's got the goods. If he's going to release them,
So I guess go ahead, Connie.
Aren't there quite a few people that have that information though with Biden's laptop?
Yeah, well, there was also and he explains it, that there was a group that was actually paid to go through and try to find all the images, resurrect everything they could from the laptop and try to comb through it for any signs of corruption. And they did a bit, but he made it sound like they just grabbed what was out there, the easy pickings, and then just left it, and that he and his team are actually pulling deleted photos, deleted text,
so he has a team
pulling those from
working with him.
Yeah, he's got some people working with him. But once again, as far as like the WikiLeaks stuff, I mean, you had DC leaks that you never know about this stuff because people will argue, yeah, well, WikiLeaks, WikiLeaks has not, from what I understand, has not been proven to be false at all. DC leaks, if I'm correct, there are rumors like on 4chan and just in the conspiracy ether that Guccifer 2.0 was actually an operative. He was given that information to release, and they did it to try to save face. So the information that he was releasing was pretty much useless information. There might have been a few small things, but nothing out of the general corruptness you would expect from any of your politicians.
So this information that first came out about the laptop and the supposed laptop, we'll put it that way, but came out right prior to the 2020 election, where it probably could have done the most amount of damage had it really surfaced to the fullest extent. And it got tramped down by the Democrats and mainstream media. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Everybody was pushing it. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people were pushing it down. Now we're 2 years later. Biden's been in office for a while. Why do you think it's coming out now? Do you think it's the Republicans that are finally getting the top of this and finally getting it out in the open? Or do you think the Democrats are letting it boil over for a purpose?
I think that the New York Times just finally admitted that it was that it's true, and that the initial stories were false about it being a Russian operation. There were those 50 intelligence agents that had all signed that document saying
right.
They believed it was a Russian operation. There's so much going on with Russia, Ukraine, and Biden right now that it's hard to piece together. I don't know. That laptop, from what I understand, is full of Ukraine stuff. Hunter Biden's laptop, and they've been blaming Russia. Now Ukraine's in a war with Russia, right? And, what's that other country just to the north of Ukraine?
Belarus.
Belarus is now about to get into the mix.
Yeah.
And, you know, I told you before about the the two guys I work with who are, you know, international, I'll just say that. They both get their news from, you know, Times of India, Al Jazeera, RT, you know, they BBC, you know, they have so much information, but, you know, talking to them, they're like, one of them was telling me everybody in Africa is supporting the Russian side. The other guy told me everybody in his home country, you know, he from Asia, is supporting the Russian side, but the government is supporting the Western countries. And not only that, but one of the interesting things is they have they put the Western countries have put sanctions on grain. They put sanctions on fertilizer. People can't grow their own food. So a lot of African countries, Malaysia, Ethiopia, India, a lot of these countries get their grain from Russia and the Ukraine, both. And they get most of their fertilizer from Russia. So people are starting to starve. I was reading an article on Al Jazeera stating, but you know, I've never seen this news anywhere else. But people in Somalia, I mean, their children are starting to starve. The price of bread has gone up like 4 or 5 times of what it used to be. But they're only sanctioning those. The Western countries, which have, you know, they didn't sanction gas or oil. They sanctioned, which is what they get from Russia. They didn't put any sanctions on what they need at all. They put sanctions on what these poor countries needed. Why would they do that? You know, and it just makes you think. It's like, you know, you guys are they're starving people. They're starving mass amounts of people just to try to sway public opinion, because then it's Russia that's starving the people when it's their sanctions. You know, Russia just basically said, all right, we know they just went to the gold standard and now they only accept the ruble for gas and oil purchases. So, you know, they're back on the gold standard. The ruble is backed by gold now. So, you know, as far as I understand it is, so they're at the point now where we were at when we became the petrodollar. And we ended up taking over, you know, everything because our dollar was the only thing worth the value. You know, we just basically told Russia that all of their US dollar holdings are worthless now. Now, of course, you got to wonder what Japan, China, India, and all these other countries that are holding trillions of US dollars are going to do. They're probably going to try to trade it in for the ruble. Nobody, and Russia's not going to say, yeah, we don't want that. We don't want that paper. So they're going to have to start flooding the market with that. It's just a theory of mine. I just got nothing to prove, but my guess is they're going to start flooding the market to buy tangible assets. Which is going to hyperinflate extremely quickly our currency. I mean, if you just dump, you know, however, what does China have, like 3 trillion in US dollars? What will happen if they just dump that into the markets? And then, of course, everybody else is going to see that. They're going to, just like any run on a bank, you know, they're going to start, everybody's going to start dumping that dollar. And, you know, I believe that's how our currency is going to crash. And then at that point, like we talked about before, is when we're going to have to implement something else. So
So China is holding a little over $1 trillion of US treasuries.
so
If you
what happens
believe
if
that
that?
number, if they flood the market with that,
Yeah.
that's not going to look good.
I've heard a lot of it though, too. They've been getting, same with Russia, they've been trading a lot of their treasuries in, their US treasuries in, they have been for years. So I don't know what that amount is now. But yeah, and a lot of that too is everything's intermeshed and stuff together. So it it doesn't do China tons of good to kill the United States because they need a lot of the stuff that the United States can give and vice versa and stuff like that. So there's, I think it's far more complicated than that as well, especially too when I think everyone has a misconception of like Russia's on this team, China's on this team, the United States is on this team, and like we know, the elites, they have their own separate teams, which are in China, Russia, wherever. So those are probably more likely the real teams, and so it's super difficult to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes because you have these elite teams working and jockeying position, and like Shane, you just said, they'll starve out a country. They don't care. They're playing for other things and other stuff, and it's like the 5D chess thing that they always talk about Trump, which I think is insanely true, and it's way more plausible than the simple cookie cutter checker moves that everyone freaks out about. Oh my God, Russia's warring with Ukraine. Like, you really think it's that simple that Russia just like, you know what, we really don't like you guys. We're gonna kill you guys because we don't like you. Like, no one does that. Or like how they show, well, they bomb like a pregnancy hospitals and babies. Like, you think that's what they do? They kill babies and pregnant women? How, that's when you know the media is just horribly corrupt and horribly just full of shit. I mean, they just pump that stuff just to get people pissed off. And like, there's no strategic value to do that
Advantage.
at all. Yeah. Why would anyone in their right mind do that? No one, because no one did do it. So, I mean, that's like the super stuff, or that's also the intriguing stuff to me. Is like, what is really happening behind the scenes and what is really going on with all these moves and counter moves and like, even like where you're talking about the laptops and information, a lot of that stuff too, I heard is it could be like insurance policies, like, hey, we won't release this until this is, if you do this, this, and this. Okay, we won't say this happened if you give us this, this, and that. So a lot of those could be side deals, or they're cutting deals, and especially like with bioweapons and stuff like that. It could have been like a thing, like even like say coronavirus, say they were putting that off, and at one point Trump said, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to cut any more deals. And then go, fine, we're letting the coronavirus go. And they let it go. So that's another huge thing with when, and I do the same thing when Trump does or doesn't do something I don't like, or I think, well, why the hell did you do that? It could be like a backdoor deal similar to that, where, hey, they said we're going to like release smallpox, but then they say, okay, we won't like indict Hillary, or we won't take Hillary's laptop out, or we won't Jeffrey Epstein, well, we won't let that stuff come out yet. And so they could be cutting deals back and forth all in the background. And so to us, well, we're not normal people, but even to normal people, they're completely oblivious. But even us that are kind of somewhat in the know, it doesn't make sense to us. Like, because yeah, the laptops, there's tons of information, and why are they bringing it out? Why isn't it coming out? How hard would that be? And I've seen tons of information just myself, like, why isn't this, being broadcasted? Why aren't they doing more with it? And maybe it's because they're waiting, or they can't, or there's other moves that they're making before they can release. Because like with the Biden laptop, I've seen tons of like sex tapes videos with Biden and some prostitute and all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
already. It's like, and that was a long time ago. It's like, what are these people doing? I could have went through the laptop by now and found some shit. I mean, it's been like
I was just
6,
watching
7
one
months.
before we talked.
Yeah, exactly.
Did it have Biden in it? I hope not.
Yeah.
So you talk a little bit about that 5D chess, and it reminds me of the term fog of war. When you talk about the very simplistic Russia on one side, Ukraine on the other. Russia broke across the border to, take over the country, and and then they pump all this stuff out into the media of what they want you to know. And
Right.
one thing for sure, you can almost guarantee that whatever we're seeing in the media has been fabricated at some level.
Right.
Sure, they're showing you videos. Sure, they're showing you photos, but some of those photos that have come out have already been proven to be doctored. They've
Right.
already proven to be of different times. Oh, well, this is actually a snippet from a conflict that happened several years ago, but we're showing it on the news like it's brand new Ukraine shit, right?
Right.
So it's very simplistic what they're trying to show us out in the media, but there's so many different levels involved. You have Putin against Ukraine, Ukraine's leader, what's his name, Zelensky, right? There probably are levels on there. You put Putin with either, well, not Trump, but Biden now, and then you add China in there and what they're doing with Taiwan, getting ready possibly to invade over in Taiwan. You've got all these players in the world, and they're probably on many different levels intermingled, financially, even
Oh
on
yeah.
elite status, where all these elites from the world get around, and they talk about how they, like you were talking about before, making back alley deals or back deals. Okay, you're going to let us come into your country and we're going to act like we're attacking, but we're going to play it this way to make you look bad or to make this look bad. And really what we want is just your oil, or really what we want is access to your nuclear power. What we want is access to your biolabs. I mean, there's all kinds of different levels here, and the fog of war makes it almost impossible to decipher. I mean, how do you decipher 5D chess when you're not even sitting on the chessboard, kind of
Right.
thing?
Yeah.
I mean, when you look back at things like the weapons of mass destruction that we went to war for that, right? Or 9/11. There's all kinds of, we'll call it conspiracy theories behind why a lot of those things happen, and many of the reasons didn't come to full light until years later. Some of them still haven't come to full light.
Oh, right.
So how many years down the road is it going to be where we finally